Thank you for watching this video from the Center for European Studies at Carleton University. This project has received funding from the European Union and Carleton University. The views expressed in this video do not reflect those of the European Union or the Center for European Studies. Hi, this is Merrick Eby from the Center for European Studies at Carleton University, and I'm joined today by Dr. Emmanuel Sigalas. Dr. Sigalas is a visiting scholar at the Center for European Studies, and he specializes in Greek politics and also European space policy. So thank you for joining me today, Dr. Sigalas. Your work looks at the European Parliament and the arguments and strategies it's used to justify or legitimize a European-level space policy. So what are these arguments that have been used? I mean, how has the European Parliament argued for a European space policy?
First of all, let me say that the role of the European Parliament is quite important in the development of a European space policy. Okay, and when we talk about European space policy, we mean a combination of governance in different levels: national, intergovernmental, European, and supranational. And since the Lisbon Treaty, the European Union has formal powers in determining space policy, which means that the European Parliament decides together with the Council of Ministers. So in a sense, it's a veto player. So we always need to have the consent of the European Parliament to get anything done. The good thing is that the European Parliament has always been supportive of a European space policy. So from the very early years, from like 1979 onwards, it has always been in favor of the space policy. And to make its argumentation appealing to a wide audience, which includes decision makers and the broader public, it has used many and different and diverse arguments over the years, such as emphasizing, for example, the need for Europe to be independent in accessing space and reaping the benefits of space, independent from the United States on the one hand, and in the past from the Soviet Union, and now from Russia or other major players. Another argument would be that space has many and diverse benefits to offer, benefits for other EU policy areas, benefits for the daily lives of citizens, benefits for different sectors like the industrial sector, benefits in terms of creating jobs and economic growth. And all this varies over the years in order, as I said, to persuade the public that space matters and Europe should have its own space policy.
One thing I found fascinating about these arguments is the way that the European Parliament has linked space policy to other policy areas where it has competence or other European level policy initiatives. So linking the European space policy to the Europe 2020 strategy or to digital Europe, even to defense policy, which is, often a controversy in space policy. So do you think there is a specific strategy to forge these links between different policy areas? For example, linking more controversial policies to more popular ones in a way to kind of legitimize both?
Yes, you're right. I mean, the ultimate objective is to legitimize the EU's involvement in space affairs. Okay, and the European Parliament has shown that it's willing to use all it takes to achieve that and deploy different kinds of arguments. One of them is linking space policy, a European space policy, to other EU policy areas, in the sense that we need space and a space policy in order to achieve the EU's goals in terms of, say, environmental protection, in terms of creating a knowledge economy, in terms of creating more, as I said before, jobs and growth. So by linking it to other already well-established policy areas, then there's a stronger case in favor of a European policy, which is necessary because, as you said, space can be quite controversial. It's expensive. It's a risky investment. It involves, it has a security dimension in it. Okay, so it's basically, you can also weaponize space. And the EU is not doesn't really have the mandate, an explicit mandate to have a very well developed military dimension. So people fear that a European space policy might result in weaponizing or militarizing the EU through the back door. So this is why the European Parliament tries to tread carefully on this matter. And as I said, one of the ways of doing this is by linking it to less controversial EU policy areas.
Your research focuses on argumentation and on justification strategies for space policy. But on a practical level, I'm wondering, have there been, any of the benefits that have been argued of space policy, have these been apparent? And does the European Parliament now, in arguing for space policy and for further competency, do they have any concrete results that they can point to in making those arguments?
There's very little concrete results yet. I guess when it comes to policy development, especially expensive policies such as space, it takes a lot of time to conceive the idea, develop it, convince all the different actors that are involved in it. So it takes more than 30 or 40 years in the case of the EU at least. It's only a couple of years ago that, I think also 1 year ago, that the Galileo satellites, a constellation of satellites, have actually been launched, successfully, and not all of them are in place yet. So only a few. As you can imagine, as I said, it's very expensive, and it's technically very difficult job to do. It's very challenging, and it's a complex science when it comes to the engineering part of it. There are many countries involved. For example, the launch has taken place, a recent launch has taken place in Russia. So it's not necessarily only in European soil or in French Guiana, so far away from mainland Europe. So we haven't seen many benefits yet. However, we are aware, and the European Parliament constantly tries to remind us, of the benefits of a space policy and of space in general. We are aware through other space programs and space applications, such as the GPS, the Global Positioning System. And this is actually the main incentive and the main reason why we have a European space policy. In particular, Europeans became painfully aware that they need their own space policy when the American forces jumped the GPS signal during the Kosovo War in 1998-1999. And then they did it obviously for military reasons, to jump the signal of the hostile forces, but at the same time they jumped the signal for the civilian forces, which affected the surrounding area. And so Europeans realized we cannot depend on the American military, basically, and the government to decide when we are going to have GPS or not. So this is how it all started. So they are aware of the benefits. Now it's a question, and citizens are also aware, because you know how you have the GPS everywhere, on your mobile phone, on your watch, on nearly everything. And the Galileo system is supposed to be much more accurate than the American GPS or the Russian GLONASS system. So I think as soon as it's in place and everything is settled, the benefits will start to show up. But it is, it's one of the challenging parts. It's not only to create the infrastructure, but actually convince people and decision makers, that is politicians and ordinary citizens, that we need to invest money in this, that it is important. And hopefully in the future, people will come to actually see the tangible benefits of having a European space policy.